to do that in the future. Also, in 2019, Department of Juvenile Justice requested $250,000 to for site location and architectural drawings for a new detention center. So clearly DJJ feels that a new facility is needed as well. Second question has to do with what the size of the facility should be. And based upon the study that we did, and I want to mention that the recommendations really are in two parts. One goes to recommending what the size should be given if the county reverts back to its previous policies before the pandemic, and the other, what the size might be if some of the practices implemented since the pandemic would be continued. What I've recommended based on the data is that Broward County would need no more than a 60-bed juvenile detention facility. The current facility is rated at 95 beds, but based on the available data and the trends over time, I estimated that the county would probably need no more than 60 beds to meet its needs. The Detention Reform Advisory Committee appointed a subcommittee to examine what kind of facility it should be, and this is really a very important question. They're interested in really having a facility that has the appropriate external and peripheral security, but internally designed more to resemble that of a residential academy with a full array of indoor and outdoor recreation opportunities, as well as treatment, short-term treatment programs. Also recommended that consideration should be given to placing youth who fail to appear in court, at least for their first time, on supervised release. This is something that DJJ has also recommended. They've also recommended that something be considered calling the differential use of warrants, which would address the need for providing alternatives for juveniles who are in detention for 24 hours or less, which now make up over 40% of the young people who are detained. In addition to that, I've recommended that given what's happened during the pandemic, one of the practices that's happened is that the juvenile court is now making use of virtual hearings. And the use of virtual hearings has resulted in a very low rate of failure to appear for juveniles, particularly lower level offenders. And so I've recommended that one of the things that the Reform Advisory Committee think about is talking with the juvenile court to see if they would consider recommending to the Chief Justice of the State Supreme Court that they allow the juvenile court to continue using virtual hearings, at least for those low-level offenders. If this is the case, I would estimate that Broward County would need no more than a 45-bed facility. And that's certainly based, upon the data that's currently available, as well as the results of current practices. There may be a need for additional alternative to detention services. DJJ has indicated they would be willing to provide such services if necessary. They feel that they have an adequate array of services to meet those needs. I'm not quite as positive as they are about that, but in any event, I think that once an attempt is made to eliminate the practice of detaining juveniles for 24 hours or less, you could easily find out if those alternatives are adequate to meet the need.
Thank you, Dr. Schwartz, for your report. Thank you very kindly, Judge Frank Orlando, for your leadership in this area. And I would be remiss if I did not thank Madam President for granting us this time on the agenda to bring back the recommendations from the detention group that's working on the new detention center. I also want to make sure that we acknowledge the support of the county in funding this particular utilization study. So thank you, Commissioner Holness, and all of your staff for getting us to this point. That report will be available to everyone on this call. so you can review it, follow up with Dr. Schwartz and Dr. Judge Orlando for any additional questions. And with that being said, I yield back to Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weeks. I will make sure that everyone has the study for review, and then we can move forward there on this. If you have not gone to the detention center, and I know that many people have, and several have not, it is not nice. You would not want anybody to remain there that you cared about, anybody or anything. It is, I know they've done some painting, and if you say you're gonna go, they throw, you know, it smells bleachy and all that sort of thing, but it is light years behind the other facilities that work on really care for our children and are able to make care of them, to maintain, to do some of the programming that DJJ wants to do and want to have done while the children are there in the facility. So they've done all the painting and the repairing, and if DJJ were to present the bills then you for repair, then you know exactly what we're talking about. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, is one of the oldest buildings in the fleet, and it just needs to we need to do something different. Our children do better, and I think it would be in everybody's best interest to work on this. Replacing the facility there. We also received a civil citation missed opportunity report. Missed opportunities is when a child encounters law enforcement, qualifies for civil citation, but for whatever reason is not granted the opportunity for a civil citation. And I was sad to find out that Broward County was the third worst in the state of Florida. Now, that was certainly not always the case. I know that the county has put tons of money into civil citation. Civil citation has been on the books for many years. The utilization was very low by law enforcement agencies. I can happily say that the NAACP and the city of Fort Lauderdale piloted a program prior to the county doing their piece that they're doing now. I can say that BSO's program was modeled after Fort Lauderdale's program. And so was the one with Chief Hallandale at the time. I don't know what they're doing now. I do know that when initially it was put into place, the detective, Carmichael at the time, assured me that officers would do the right thing. If you said, please, kind sir, give this child an opportunity to participate in this pre-arrest program, that they would do so. He found out that his colleagues were not so inclined, and then Fort Lauderdale then put in a disciplinary piece into their SOP to share with them the importance of making sure that these children receive an opportunity. And followed by Hallandale, and at that time was SO. I'm not sure that that is the case for either one of the agencies now, but I would hopefully that will be in somebody's report that you have received the direction from those law enforcement agencies. And so State Attorney's Office was locked out when we officially began this. It was important to have a firewall between pre-arrest of civil citation and post-arrest, which was diversion. Parkland happened, things changed, and now the roles have changed. And so I don't think the program has been updated to reflect the new statute. And so we want to know exactly from the subcommittee where we are and how we go from being one of the worst to being the best and this is criminal justice reform, if I've ever seen it, in Broward County. So the subcommittee, whoever's going first, I'm told, Mr. Weeks, you're going first.
Yes, I was kindly nominated to present on these issues.
Tell us something good now, okay?
The subcommittee we met, that we did, and we had a very productive first meeting. I want to appreciate and acknowledge all the folks that came together Judge Holmes, Cassandra, State Attorney's Office, my office, folks from the county, Gloria. We all got together and talked about it. And here's the deal. We have a first working draft of the policies and procedures for civil citation as outlined pursuant to the statute. The statute gives authority to the state attorney, the public defender, the clerk, and other interested stakeholders to get together and draft the policies for this circuit. We are in the process of doing that. We have not been in compliance pursuant to the statute, but we are going to get in compliance, as pointed out by learned Judge Holmes. And that means that we have to set what we believe civil citation should look like in this community. We are light years ahead because we have had civil citation for quite some time, funded and supported by the county. So the county has a working draft of how they do things. We have a vision of who would qualify to enter civil citation, what types of charges would be recognized, whether there will be a fee scale and things of that sort, which we are outlining in our policy portion. And then the procedural portion be recognized in what the county is doing. I foresee us having maybe one, if not two more meetings, and we should have this thing nailed together. And when we have it nailed down, we will present it to Madam Chair for distribution and presentation to the entire advisory board. Once we get that done, it then becomes a shift into getting the officers to, or the departments to recognize that this is the policy as established pursuant to the statute for this circuit. And we need to then hold them accountable with respect to following those policies established for this circuit. That will include creating the SOP, the agreement to deal with those folks that come through the JAC that have not been issued a civil citation. And that will also include finding other areas that we are missing folks that would otherwise qualify for civil citation to receive those citations. So I think we will have another meeting probably next week. I'm going to finish up my edits to the first draft and send them to the work group this afternoon. Then we will have Judge Holmes going to give edits. The state will give edits. Everyone will give their edits. And then we will convene to agree on the language. And once the language is agreed upon, I don't foresee us having many more meetings after that. We'll be presenting it to Madam Chair, who will then give us some dates on when we will present it to the larger group. So that's where we're at. I do not want to drag this on. I want to put some artificial timelines on all of us because that's how we get things done. So I would like to have this whole matter tied up in a bow by the end of this month. So by April 1st, we should have a policy and procedure for this circuit that has been drafted pursuant to statute. Now, once we get that, we're going to have to start doing the work of getting all those folks on board. Not on board, but to follow the policy pursuant as laid out by statute. We don't have to beg folks to do this. We need to point out that the statute compels them to do this. And as a result, they need to be explaining why they're not following what is delineated in the statute. And that will be our next phase of work after we get this first level done. I will defer to all the other members that were on the call. If I missed anything, you're more than happy to point out the issues that I overlooked. Thank you.
Mr. Pryor, before I go to me, let me ask the commissioner, were you aware, because I know subversion is and civil citation is certainly your thing down at the county. Were you aware that the county's program was not in line with statute? You're muted. You're muted.
There had been some discussion over time as to how we ensure that we're all together on this. And I'm grateful that we have a new state attorney, because I think there were some issues there previously that kind of slowed the process, my understanding of what was going on. But yeah, I know we had some issues, not the entire depth of it, but I know we were talking to the state attorney at the time about ensuring that we're on the same page. They wanted to do something a bit different, to be honest with you. I don't think they wanted to necessarily play in the same ballpark with the county and what we were doing. And that was more the issue than anything else.
I remember that, Commissioner. You're absolutely correct. Mr. Pryor.
Well, we're at the table and we're having a discussion, and I think we're making significant strides. That's half the battle. But look, I like to deal in practicality and the reality of the situation. We're going to come to an agreement on what this civil citation program is going to be and what it looks like for Broward County. But then we have to look at the practical aspect that I think Gordon alluded to, and I think Gordon is very astute to, is us getting all of the other 18 or so municipalities in Broward County that actually enforce these civil citations. The reason why it's so successful in the other counties, why it's successful in Miami-Dade and it's better in other counties than us, is because all of them are signed on and all the law enforcement agencies are actually issuing it. And I think it's an education issue, actually us, me, Harold Pryor, going to the Broward Chiefs and letting them know that this is the law. This is what we need to do. We have to issue these civil citations. And so that's half the battle. So look, I'm not even concerned about us being able to get this drafted and coming to an agreement and having a civil citation program that we all can agree on, because we're more than halfway there, actually. I'd submit to all of you. I think the next step, the important step that we're all going to have to work together on, is getting all of the local law enforcement agencies to really buy in and to sign on. And if they don't, which I've said it countless times, and I'm actually working it now, I've commissioned my team to look into it. We're reaching out to the county. We're reaching out to the clerk's office. There are other circuits that are actually have a screening program, a screening process within their offices. So if the law enforcement agencies aren't enforcing these civil citations, the moment that they issue these, if they go to the jack, we know those kids will be caught through that situation. But if you have not in custody situations with these juveniles, I think it's totally permissible. And I think we have the resource to do it to where we screen it. So if that kid comes in, it's not in custody, we look at it, that kid is actually is eligible, for a civil citation, we should then be able to kick it over to the program, to the civil citation program. So that's the next step. So I think when we do that, combined with the work we're doing right now, combined with the processes that I'm working on right now internally, we're actually doing the research right now to see when we can kick it off. We're going to notice those numbers go up for us in a positive light with reference to those civil citations. So, with that said, we're at the table. We're having a discussion. We're more than halfway there.
Thank you very much, State Attorney Pryor. So I'll let you know also that I have gone out and met with the chiefs at their meeting, presented to them with staff to let them know about the program, how we can work with them, what we offer. The county is invested and is ready to facilitate everyone that we need to in the program. And if need be, I'm willing to push to get more funding to ensure that all the juveniles that are qualified to get help through this program, because it's very successful. We save a lot of money. The people in Broward County saving a lot of money through this process. And not only that, we're strengthening and building families and lives of our future, our children. It was frustrating for me, to be honest with you, that we weren't able to make more progress than and again, we're in the right place, and I'm glad to go out with you, State Attorney, when you go in front of those chiefs of chiefs. And part of what we're probably going to have to do is build a strategy beyond the chiefs, ensure that the city manager and the political leadership of these cities understand this is something that must be done.
Well, I'm gonna just say that I remember Mr. Runcie went to speak at one of those things, and I've gone to other meetings. And so you have these group of people, I'll just be nice, sitting around just, you know, being them. We did not, I can say that as many times I know that Maria win and, you know, whatever, we worked better in getting people signed on, meeting with them individually, because we know many of the chiefs, although there have been some changes and we know the city managers. I don't know that we've ever accomplished anything going to those meetings, and they'll give you your 5 or 6 minutes and they'll say, absolutely. And nothing happened. I know that the first meeting I attended, Mike Satz called a meeting at his office and they all came down, and one of the chiefs explained that he would not want to hire someone who had a civil citation. And Satz then explained to him how ridiculous that was for a kid who had a civil citation. You know, at that time, there wasn't even a record of it, and the kid never reoffended. How ridiculous that was. But I get it. If that works, that's fine. I would suggest, and also that we meet with the individuals, because we know some that are amenable. And then in addition to perhaps work on that, because they're extra. I'll just say that when the different chiefs are in a group there, but we'll find out where they are. Colonel Holmes.
Hello, Madam Chair. Hello, everyone. Last month, I had an opportunity to speak to the Broward County Chief of Police Association and to reiterate the importance of the program and to advise them that we were the 3rd worst in the state and how bad our numbers were. I advised them the importance of not just talking the talk, but stepping up to the plate and advising their officers and educating them on how we need to come together. And we here at the Broward County Sheriff's Office, we're trying to lead by example. And I think State Attorney Pryor would happen to be part of the meeting also, so he got a chance to hear it. And it's ironic that shortly thereafter, State Attorney Pryor put out an email reinforcing the importance of the program. And here at our office, we started getting calls from different municipalities asking to see our policy on the civil citation program. So I think it's starting to spread throughout the association, the importance that there's a new group here that wants to make a change and that are insisting that everyone steps up to the plate. I think this is a great opportunity for us together collectively. And with the assistance of Commissioner Holness, I know he stated earlier, I think the last meeting, how some of these elected officials need to put the pressure on some of these police chiefs also to get these results. But I think I'm optimistic that we are heading in the right direction. I think with State's Attorney Howard Pryor's definitely pushing it, and us here at the Sheriff's Office leading by example, I think that we could head in the right direction and no longer be the 3rd worst in the state of Florida, because that's not a good thing, not a good thing. And just internally, we implemented a new program just March 1st. We hold our deputies more accountable and making sure that they actually contact the JAC and everything is documented so we can improve those numbers and get rid of those missed opportunities, because that's not a good thing. So I think we're going to work closely with the State Attorney's Office, and we're going to, like I said here, we're going to lead by example and push and continue to be on these municipalities and provide them whatever type of assistance they need, whatever documentation to show how we can make this program go forward. But we're here to help and push it along.
Judge Williams. You are muted, sir.
All righty. What's up, Madam President?
Okay, so you have any thoughts on civil citation?
To be honest with you, I'm the duty judge, so my internet went out last night, so I spent the night at the Plantation Police Department signing warrants. I'm tired, I'm sleepy, but I'm just gonna give you my own 2 cents. Judge Holmes, I don't know if it's because you there or what. Mr. Weeks, but what I see is a military type operation. You guys have a plan. You're intelligent people. You've put it together. You have a schedule of operations, and you have excellent leadership at the top. I'm actually looking forward to this. I will say this to you, Ms. Ellison, Madam Ellison. I share your thoughts on meeting with the police chiefs. It's a very interesting group of people. I think you're right. You're going to have to break them down, Mr. Pryor, as we did one by one, because each man brings a history, and he will tell you, I hear what you're saying, Judge, but 18 years ago, this is what happened when another issue came up or another type of program. So I feel very comfortable. The fact that we have a plan of operation, a strategic plan, and hey, Holmes, Judge Holmes, was that you that got everybody to put together a timeline?
I think everyone agreed to that, Judge.
Mr. Weeks, what is this, April 1st, Mr. Weeks? Madam President.
March 31st.
March 31st. I feel very comfortable. And again, Mr. Pryor, each one of us, I think, know police chiefs who live in our city at least. And so again, call upon all of us. But again, I think it's like Ms. Ellison, we met with Promise. You got to meet with the Principals Association. You got to meet with the union leadership. You got to meet with the individual PTAs. So again, you got to get everybody on board, and you can't really do it in a group meeting and so forth. So again, I apologize, Ms. Ellison, if my mind's kind of scattered, but I got all these warrants, about 18 in front of me. I'm trying to do them at the same time before 5 o'clock, but I'm here with you, okay?
All right. So thank you, Judge. So there was a statute change, a change in the statute rather, that went from may to shall. So explain to me, or to us, Judge Holmes, because we keep talking about getting them on board and if they will and should they would. Tell me how this thing works as the new statute change works, or where we at legally when it comes to civil citation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for the opportunity. I'm learning more juvenile now than I ever did in 24 years on the bench, even though I handled juvenile cases. But I always use 95804 or 985 to come up with creative sentencing. However, 985.12 was enacted in 2018, and it made it permissive. If the police wanted to participate, that's fine. If they didn't, no harm, no foul. In 2019, the legislature did an overhaul. I've never seen such legislative aggression to make this mandatory now. It is Florida Statute 985.12. It doesn't give police departments an alternative or the discretion. They shall. Now they can buy in and use the plan that is promulgated by the clerk, the public defender, and the state attorney. The county is sort of our hand in hand because, believe it or not, the counties didn't have to do it. So I'm appreciative to Broward County for stepping up and leading the way for programs for these children, because the statute gives the state attorney's office the right to run the programs. That's the law. However, we keep saying, we'll get the chiefs on board. The chiefs don't have an option but to follow the law. They're sworn and upheld to uphold the law of the state of Florida and defend the Constitution. This is the law. Civil citation is not a diversion program. And as I have harped on in the committee, if the child the police go out, the child is eligible, there's the eligible offenses that are in the statute, as well as in the draft that the committee has come up with already. If that child is eligible, that child should never feel the pressure of the silver handcuffs. They should never ride in the back of a police car to go to jack. They should never experience those two things. That's the purpose of this statute that the legislature, I wasn't in Tallahassee, came out in 2019. So it's been on the books for 2 years now. So that child under 985.12, this is pre-arrest, before being arrested. If the child commits an eligible offense, then that child should be given a civil citation. And there are some things that the statute outlines that must be done. This is not an if, they want to, this is shall. The statute doesn't say they may, they say they shall. So I want the committee to be forceful enough to put the wording in. And then those police chiefs that feel they don't have to follow the law, let them answer to a higher court, even being held in contempt. But I think there's some ways around that. If we can get some non-mandatory players involved, and I've mentioned that to the committee, but I want them to come up with it. I represent the NAACP, and so I'm just trying to get them to understand that this is the law, and all we want, my role is to put it in the law. And you can't leave it up to interpretation for the officers and the police chiefs. If it's in writing, they'll follow it. And if it's not clear, you leave wiggle room. So I want the committee to be as clear as possible, follow the statute. And I can't tell you how many times they heard me say that. The statute is self-explanatory. So if you put it in the agenda, the plan, that's the, basically the statute outlines the plan that you should have. And it's not subject to interpretation. And well, call me and I'll interpret it for the police. No, put it in writing and they'll have to follow it unless there's a constitutional reason why they should not. So that has been my I've harped on that. And I think they're tired of hearing me say that, but I'll be back at the next meeting and I'll be saying it over and over again. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Holders, you had your hand up.
Yes, two things. One, to State Attorney Pryor and anyone else, for our Black elected officials meeting, and to you also, Madam Chair, you attend often. For the Black elected officials meeting, I'll put this on the agenda as an item for us to educate, inform, and get the support from the Black elected officials. We usually have 30 plus in attendance as far as the elected officials. So I think that's a place that we can go with it. And I believe that because we are early in doing what Broward County did, we were allowed to put our program in place, even though the state required a state attorney's office to run it. So I think that's how we got in. We were early, earlier than the finalization of the statute.
All right. The state attorney had to approve the program, and we early on had a civil citation program, and we worked with the state attorney to walk through the different pieces to allow that. But they could also be an additional program, and so they were fine with that. And they went out to seek funding. Do you know? And I guess I can bring Tamika on, I'm sorry, your staff on to say how many programs the county has now.
Well, Tamika, is she on? Yes. Well, okay, so if Tamika is on, she can speak. But what we did was we did the additional adult civil citation program also. I'll allow to, and we have a
but I only wanted to be, I want to stay and drill down on what we have going on in Juvenile right now.
So we only have the one. Tamika, go ahead if you have.
I'm okay. Maybe I said that wrong. Providers. Let me just say that.
Well, yes, she'll give you the number of providers because we have a number of them. Tamika?
Yes. Okay, so there's one civil citation program, and currently for that civil citation program, there are about 8 providers for services.
Okay, and the capacity. So what the problem that I feel like we had, and you, Tamika was not there in charge of the program. Let me say that.
Yes.
When the report came out, and it was apparent that not all departments were participating fully, there was no pressure put on the law enforcement agencies to do so. And I think earlier on, they wanted to get them in, kind of massage the relationship. It didn't really have to, and that sort of thing. But that really hasn't worked out. And so now that the statute has changed, there has to be someone monitoring the missed opportunities as well. And so when you have someone to go through one of the different, say like domestic violence, they say, well, we're not feel comfortable. I mean, we found that became a thing that allowed the officer an out. I know when I visited the Miami program, they had 3 infractions. One was cruelty to animals. The other one was something like domestic violence. It was something else. But what they did was, rather than just say, no, the kid qualifies, but I'm not going to give you the opportunity, they had a consult between the state attorney's office, the PD's office, and DJJ to discuss the whole case and the factor, all the factors in there to see if that was something that they could allow the child to look at all the circumstances. So I would hope, Mr. Pryor, that when you're writings, you and Mr. Weeks would consider something along those lines when you talk about infractions and that sort of thing. So it requires a good working relationship, obviously. But if you have something that's going to cause concern, that maybe the two agencies could come together and discuss some issues such as that.
I believe Tamika's office, we have been starting to look at the missed opportunities, Tamika.
Well, we would all like to look at it, Commissioner, but it seems like it's almost an act of God to get that. So I'm not sure why, but we would very much like to see the missed opportunities, to drill down to the agencies, to perhaps the officer, to the school, whatever it is. We'd like to see what's really going on.
Were you collecting data on that, Tamika? Weren't we trying to get that data? Or where we are with that?
Oh, okay. So for the missed opportunities, just so there's clarity, we are provided with a missed opportunity from the Department of Juvenile Justice now as it comes in. Previously, it was like once every month or every 2 months, but we've been provided more equally. The challenge with us getting that data is that a missed opportunity is after the fact. So our office is only privy to the information of the youth who are actually referred to the program. So we collect that data. And for missed opportunities, we partner with the Department of Juvenile Justice, and Cassandra sent us over those reports, but it's just that those reports, those missed opportunities are after the fact. That means the opportunity for civil citation has passed, which is why we don't have firsthand access to that information.
Chief Evans.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we need a missed opportunities report.
That report is produced at a statewide level, and when I receive them, I send them out. So they don't come in the format that they once came in, but I send them out regularly. And one of the action items from our work group we've had is that what I do receive that drills down to the office, not to the officer, but to the agency and the charge in more real time, I'm going to begin to send those reports to include the state attorney and the public defender, so we can catch them before they're 2 or 3 months after the fact, right? So we can, again, begin to redirect and take a more strategic approach to it. But the missed opportunity report, I don't have the luxury of controlling its production. And so I don't have that as frequently as we once had. Years ago, it was really every month. But I do get a different type of report that I've been sharing with Tamika. It comes about twice a month, and it's almost in real time. And so hopefully those will be the ones we can kind of put our hands around and see what's going on.
Sounds like the stopgap is gonna be with the state attorney's office there. Some years ago when we worked with Fort Lauderdale, at the time they had I'm not sure what they have now, their own jail. And so there was, by the time the children arrived at the JAC, they had already been processed. And so then Chief Adderley worked with us to work with the jail. So the first thing, if a juvenile was brought in, even if the officer had not called the JAC to see if the child was eligible, when they arrived at the jail, at Fort Lauderdale's jail, they would then determine if the child was eligible for civil citation before they were processed in the stopgap like there, and along with discipline if they did not follow along. So I guess it seems like it's going to fall under Mr. Pryor's shop to determine, to be the stopgap, because we're getting after the fact. I mean, we would still like to see that, but it would be great if we could find out before,
right?
That whole thing.
Right. So you want to change the gatekeeper.
Right. We want to, we can put in several layers, several stopgaps, but it seems like, if it's going to be taken, they're going to be processed. Are you all still doing it, or would they do it at the JAC? Did we get the Did we get the agreements that were executed previously regarding children who arrived at the JAC that were eligible for civil citation? Were we able to get that?
That's Tamika has those were under her shop.
Tamika, does the committee have that?
So what I will say for that the agreement that was previously in place, there are still some occurrences where law enforcement will bring you over, and there have been occurrences where they're issued a citation at the JAC, but that's only for some law enforcement agencies, because there were still a number of law enforcement agencies that never signed on to that agreement. I
understand, but as I spoke to Judge Holmes, we don't know who those agencies are. And so we would love to know and see those agreements, because maybe then you don't have to start from scratch. If you have someone that perhaps you have the same leadership in place, that would be okay with essentially allowing BSO to, to place a qualifying child in civil citation. So can you get those or is that an issue for you to get email those agreements over to the committee, the subcommittee? Executed agreements, so the agencies that were on board is what I'm asking for.
Okay, I can reach out to BSO to determine where the executed agreements are, but I believe we have some, but BSO will have the majority of it since the agreement was between them and the municipality, but I can work on that.
Okay, when you say BSO, you meant the staff at the JAC, or who was the agreement with it, as you recall?
So the agreement is with the Broward Sheriff's Office, because they would be the one, if a youth is arrested, they would be the one to actually issue the citation. So the agreement was with Broward Sheriff's Office and the municipalities.
Do we know who specifically, because they had the guy over there running the JAC who was not law enforcement, and he had some different kind of things going on. Cassandra, do you know who it was or which department specifically within BSO? Because you're talking about a lot of territory when you say BSO specifically.
Right.
If Colonel Holmes is going to go and look or have somebody look, who would he talk to?
We were working with Dave Scharf. That's who we were working with.
Is he still with BSO?
Yes, he is.
Okay. So then we know where to go as far as those agreements. And can we get those out to see? So we'll see who was on board and who wasn't. So that'll give us a starting place.
Will do. I'll follow up on that.
Okay, I think I saw some other hands in there. Judge Holmes, your hand is up.
Yes, I just wanted to ask Judge Williams. Judge Williams, you still awake? I need to ask a question.
I would be up all night tonight too, but go ahead, madam. I can hear you. I'll try and answer you.
All right. When a child, for instance, is accused of the crime of trespass, okay, at the Quick Stop or wherever, has no priors, and all of a sudden they appear before you in court, does that not trigger in the minds of a judge, like, maybe this child was eligible for civil citation, and all the judges sounding the alarm also, or do they even know about the civil citation statute?
Judge Holmes, I don't say this to patronize you, but the reason my hand was up was to address exactly what you're asking. Here is my concern. There's only two entities that I know of that can say an arrest never should have taken place: the state attorney's office and a judge. I can throw a case out and say, this kid never should have been arrested, case dismissed. The problem is that, as I recall Maria Schneider, her position was that civil citation is a word that never should be entered until should be uttered in the judge's courtroom. I cannot know who should have received a civil citation. I cannot discuss it in the courtroom and so forth. I think she's correct on that point. It's kind of like an out of custody thing in which I never really should know who's ever had a civil citation. I think that it's not anything that the judges can help you out with. So what my argument is this, Judge Holmes: the gatekeeper has to be the state attorney's office. Forget all of those big shots. Forget all of the police chiefs. All you have to do is, when a case comes before you, Rory Michelle or whatever, you simply just call a deputy up and say, sir, you gave this kid this arrest for a trespass. This should have been a civil citation. We're not going to proceed forward. Once that guy tells the other 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 guys in the unit, then you'll solve your problem. All right, now, right now you have 8 providers, 8 diversionary providers. Every single one of your providers do civil citation. The legal aid just texted me to tell me that they're watching this. And they said, Judge, you've got 8 providers. They all do civil citation. So Ms. Michelle, whoever makes the decision can simply say, I'm not gonna, if you wish to, I'm not gonna file a petition. I'm not gonna charge the case. I'm gonna speak with the officer and tell him, you never should have arrested this child. You should have just given this child a civil citation. And if you choose to, you can still keep the arrest and divert it. But my sense of it is that the gatekeeper has to be the state attorney's office. Judge Holmes, that answers your question.
Well, somewhat, but you know, you can't, it's hard to undo an arrest. There's no such fiction in the state of Florida, no provision for that to happen. And if that program, that statute, that law is designed to keep cuffs off of kids and keep them from being in the back of a police a patrol car, something's got to be done. Because that unarrest, that still is, there's some psychological studies that, you know, since I've had a little time on my hand, I've been reading that, just a little taste of the handcuffs and in the car, that creates, it triggers in the mind of a kid, oh, this is no big deal. I'll do this again. And I'll get, you know, so once you give people a taste of something, it's like apple pie. If they like it, they're going back for a second slice. So that was the whole purpose behind the legislative purpose behind the civil citation statute, that they never feel the cuffs, they never take the ride. So something's got to be done to make sure that the soldiers in the field, that would be the police officers, know that, you know, look at the list. And if the child is eligible, you know, sometimes they're going to have to make a phone call. Who do they call to say, is this the first time this child has done this? Who do they call? I mean, that's what helps them, because I can't put it all on them. They didn't go to law school. They drove by the law school. So who do they call to know if the kid is really eligible? Because we're telling them, you got to do it, okay? One of the offenses is trespass. One is possession of alcohol by a minor. You know, is the kid eligible? They don't know. So who do they call? Can they call the duty judge?
That's correct. I have seen several, I would say I've seen about a half a dozen probable cause affidavits in which the officer says right at the bottom, I could not issue this kid a civil citation because I reviewed whatever computers they have in their cars or whatever. I reviewed his background. He already has had 2 arrests for blankety blank. I have seen about a half a dozen of those. So again, I think that they have that ability to access it in the vehicle.
They do.
They do?
Yes.
That's my sense of it, yeah.
On the, for the prevention, civil citation, they have access in their cars?
Tamika, don't we have that built in now, Tamika?
So that is built into the program in accordance with the civil citation that's been in place since 2013. Law enforcement officers are required to contact the Juvenile Assessment Center because it's a 24-hour facility. And that's how they know whether or not a youth is eligible or not.
So he's looking at arrest on his screen. That's one thing, but when they find nothing and they still don't call the jack and still make the decision to arrest a kid, then that's what we're talking about those. Colonel Holmes.
Yes, Madam Chair, as it relates to these police chiefs, they have to make sure that their officers are held accountable for their actions. Many times they fail to follow up to make sure and to determine whether these juveniles are able to participate in the civil citation program. And as I stated earlier, that's one of the things that we just initiated here at the Sheriff's Office. We have a log now where, and it started March 1st, where our deputies have to contact the JAC to find out if they're eligible for civil citation. And they have to document who they spoke to and the reason why they're eligible, the reason why they're not eligible. And this is for tracking reasons to make sure that we're narrowing it down to see who is following our protocol and state statute, as Judge Holmes alluded to, those that are following and those that are not, and those that aren't need to be held accountable. And we're hoping with the assistance of State Attorney Pryor and his staff that you know, we here at the Sheriff's Office, we can lead by example and hopefully, you know, we just instituted this. So we're going to be tracking it to see how it goes, but hopefully we can get some of the other municipalities to get on board and we can make a difference. But I think that as Judge Holmes alluded to and Judge Williams alluded to, I think these police chiefs have to make sure that their officers are held accountable, because as we know, there are officers that like to try to deviate from proper protocols and policies and do their own thing. And we have to prevent that from happening.
Let me ask Lieutenant Cecil Stone, I know I'm catching your cold here, but can you tell me anything about your policies and procedures and hopefully practices when it comes to civil citation in Fort Lauderdale PD?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Hello, everyone. So I'm filling in for Dr. Salters, who retired last week. But just to answer your question, we do have a policy that states that our officers must check in with Jack once they make their arrest, check and see if the juvenile is eligible for the Virgin program. And then if they are, then we take care of it that way. But we have a policy that we make sure that our officers follow. And I think, just like everybody alluded to earlier, I think the fail-safe will definitely have to be the state attorney office, but it is incumbent upon the police department to ensure that we are giving these juveniles the second opportunities whenever they meet the qualifications for this program. But we do have a policy that address that.
Okay. So you haven't changed your policy on civil citation or diversion, because there's actually two different things. So I know that the SOP was changed when we had the joint program that was doing Adderley. So is there still policy in place to deal with officers who choose to arrest rather than issue a civil citation program? If you are aware. If you're not, then that's fine. Just let us know.
Yeah, I'm not aware of that one, but no, I'm not aware of that one.
Okay.
But we do have a policy. And if you're talking about a policy in place that states that states the qualification for the program, yes, we do have that, but I'm not aware of any updates that you're talking about.
Yeah, your past chief was not so inclined, so I would not be surprised if it were removed from the SOP, but because Rick was not feeling that whole piece. But I do know that when Adderley was there, because we did have a number of officers in Fort Lauderdale who were not following the process. That's when Carmichael was in charge of civil citation there. But thank you, Lieutenant, I appreciate it. Chief Evans.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to reiterate a point. I see Judge Holmes must have been reading my mind. She put it in the chat. I think we as they say, when you know better, you do better. We have two. I see one of a philosophical problem. Officers believing that even if a child does qualify, that there's a lesson that comes along with the arrest process for a type of child. Whoever that type of child is, that this arrest is going to teach them a lesson. And so they move through this process, even realizing that it may get them nowhere. And so Judge Holmes just stepped that out in the chat, but we've got to get to the point of preventing this from happening, because the psychological effects are beyond what any of us may ever be able to envision. But the second part of it, an arrest alone is not a disqualifier. What was the outcome of the arrest? Because if the state attorney did not file, if it never made it to that point, then that is not an automatic disqualifier for civil citation, nor is this number of times. The statute does not delineate the number of times in which a civil citation can be offered. We have all been given a lot of grace and a lot of mercy and a lot of opportunities in our life, but we will not give them for our children. And so we have got to strategically, to Judge Williams' term today, have to figure out how to do something about this. And so we're going to put the process in place. But I think it's really clear that all of us who are children advocates understand that pre-arrest is just that. Don't let it happen. And the second part is an arrest is not equivocal to disqualification of civil citation. And the disqualifiers that we have, such as domestic violence, we are 30 years past that policy of having to remove and arrest the person to being able to deliver quality services in the community. So we have got to stop just allowing what we've done historically to be the precedent that we continue to live by. So I think once we get this paperwork part of it down, we've got to push past some of these other barriers that are in the thought process of those who are actually causing harm to children.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Tamika, did I see your hand up?
You did see my hand up. I was actually trying to address the operating procedure for Fort Lauderdale. In 2018, we actually worked with Fort Lauderdale for probably about a year to have their SOP updated, or their operating procedure updated. And I worked with Dr. Salters on that. So I think it has been updated. I don't know necessarily that it has been implemented.
Yeah, it should have been updated before that. When we had the change at Chief is when the things changed. You know, SOP is a living, breathing document. So when you have those things, we would have to find out exactly what it says now in order to be sure. And we also would need to see the same thing from the other agencies. BSO certainly had wide usage, Fort Lauderdale, and after a long while, Hallandale came aboard after the agency was on sharing with us how they did not arrest little babies and the children, and how great they were. And then he showed up on all the news of them arresting, I think 6 and 7 year olds. So that didn't go well. And so policy had to really be put into place. But I think we should get the written policy as it is now for all of the agencies. And I think, did you do that, make that request at the subcommittee meeting, Judge Holmes?
Yes, and Mr. Pryor said he would get it. I haven't received it. And I checked my email 5 minutes before coming on this meeting. So I still have not received them. But if I could add one more thing, Madam Chair. In addition to talking to the police chiefs, I believe every police department has a general counsel or attorney that advises them. We need to have a sit down with them because they're supposed to be telling them about changes in the law. Okay, and to the extent that they're not doing it, I'll be more than happy to give them a quick Zoom on following the law and mandamus. So let's include them when you start going around. Include the people that are getting paid to advise these police departments who literally are not doing so. So that's important because that they may not receive it kindly from us, but they hired the legal counsel. So I think Terrence Lynch is with BSO. So, you know, I'll be happy to talk to him. And is Brad Weissman still with Fort Lauderdale? If he is, I'll be more than happy to tell him and show him the statute. So that should be included in the agenda of people who are spoken to. Okay.
Did you say yes, Lieutenant?
So thank you.
Yes. Brad Weissman still our legal advisor.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Pryor? Okay, was the state attorney, were you able to get the information requested, or did you get around to requesting the information on from the other agencies regarding their policies and procedures on civil citation, and have you received it?
Yeah, so the request was made. We've received, I believe, 15 of them so far. 15 or 16, I think we have 2 or 3 outstanding. So I've sent the follow-up emails to those. I was actually surprised with the level of response that we had. So my goal is as soon as we get those, we'll send them out. I think what I'll just go ahead and do tomorrow, I'll just send what I have to the group. And then the remaining ones, we'll just send those as they come in.
Thank you. I'd be very interested to see what they have in writing and if they're practice matches their policy when it comes to civil citation. So it sounds like we have the county ready to continue. You have the providers, you have the necessary funding, you are willing to go back and request more if need be. Is that not right, Commissioner?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, we are.
Okay, and you've got the willingness of the Public Defender's Office. Is that not right, Mr. Weeks?
Most definitely. We are ready to go.
Okay, and also with the State Attorney's Office, you are also ready and willing to go, ready to go. It sounds like your role, because I know some State Attorney's Office wanted in on civil citation, but it sounds like you got they got exactly what they asked for. And so a lot of it is resting at your doorstep, Mr. Pryor.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're dedicated. So okay. you have a willing and able partner that's willing to expend resources to ensure that we get it right. So. Okay.
And so the county is still staffed up because I know there were a lot more people, and I'm not sure what's going on particularly with the numbers declining as they have been, Commissioner.
Yeah, we are. Tamika, and again, I've spoken to Tamika. If need be, I'll go back and request more funding. But last time I spoke with her about it, and I don't see her. She's still on.
Yes.
We're in good shape. Tamika, you can respond.
Okay, yes, we're still fully staffed.
Okay. All right, so we just need folk to just follow the statute and make sure that these kids are taken care of. I am, so when you all are determining, at some point you will decide, Mr. Pryor, when you start to really check, and you'll all generate a missed opportunity report as well.
With reference to the citations, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
That's something we'll have to look into. Like I said, it's really us getting, and actually since we're here, that's great because I had a meeting earlier this week with the Broward County. We're gonna need access, the same access that law enforcement agencies get to the civil citation numbers and the information. Well, I'm sorry, I'm talking more on an adult thing. I'm mixing up issues, I apologize. I'll talk to our team and we'll look into that.
No, actually you are correct because I remember Maria saying she had access to the civil citation portal though. She said she had it.
You're right. I'm mixing up issues. I'm mixing up I'm doing a similar, I'm planning on doing a similar thing for adult civil citations. And I mixed it up with our juvenile issue. So I do apologize about that.
No, that's still right track because you do need the information. I'm not sure who has it or how it's being utilized, but you are entitled to it just in case.
So I will look into that following this meeting.
Okay. And Ms. Evans, you are going to work with us on the missed opportunities. And DJJ is certainly, I believe, still all in when it comes to civil citation.
All in, and certainly will facilitate the data process. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Judge, is there anything we're missed? Because
I think this, Madam Chair, you didn't miss anything. Well, you very rarely, when it comes to juveniles, miss anything. So what we're going to do is the committee's going to meet again. I've made notes of things that need to be in the written plan, and we'll plug it into the county's plan so that it comports with the statute, since the county is running the programs. And we should, by the 31st, we should have something in your email box for you to present at the next meeting, which is the 14th, I believe.
Thank you. Thank you, Judge. Mr. Weeks.
Thank you.
Judge Holmes, I'm glad that you mentioned the notes that you're taking, because as you can see, I'm typing as well and I'm taking notes. I'm going to try to get to the committee hopefully by the end of the day. My day is in late, so it's probably going to be late in your email box, the edits from our office, so we can all start putting our edits into this final draft. The quicker we get this done, the quicker we can have our meeting, and the quicker we can have a final product to start getting to the board. So with that said, thank you, Madam President, for lighting some fires. And we're going to get this thing done.
Is there any other concerns or anything we missed from any of the other board members? Anything we haven't thought of? Anything you're concerned about? Because I know there's a couple people on that had programs as well. Okay. And to Ms. Marcello, you have everything that you need to move forward, correct?
Yes, and they actually reviewed those reports, those standard operating procedures that State Attorney Pryor has referred to. To your speculation, Madam Chair, they do have, all the agencies that we receive from do have procedures that require them to call the JAC, as Tamika was talking about. I think it comes down to two things. One is something that Judge Holmes brought up, at one of our last meetings, which is that educating the officers on the streets to actually implement the procedures that are already in place. And two, if we're having missed opportunities, the only thing I can think of, one of the main things I can think of is those agencies that are not signed on for civil citation because they do not realize, as Judge Holmes has, obviously pointed out, and this is why we're having this committee, that it is now mandated by statute that they should. Those agencies are still making arrests for misdemeanors. But I want to remind everyone that they don't go to court because they come to our office first, and we're diverting those cases. Now, I understand what Chief Evans has said and Judge Holmes and everybody, including Madam Chair, your concerns. Everybody's concerned that we don't want an arrest taking place. I just want to remind everybody, though, I am curious to see who might be slipping into the courtroom because we still have a gatekeeper in the sense that we provide diversion for those first-time misdemeanor offenders. So they really should not be showing up in a courtroom. If they are, it's because we've gotten that kicked back from diversion because that child is not participating in the program, and then we might be filing the charge. And we're addressing those circumstances in our office as well. But I don't think that they should be appearing in court. I don't think that we really have them appearing in the courtrooms, but I do appreciate what everybody's saying in that there's still arrests taking place. But I think this policy, as Judge Holmes keeps impressing upon us, and as you do, Madam Chair, that these police agencies are going to have to understand this is not a may, it's a shall. And on educating those law enforcement agencies, we should be going in the right direction. And then hopefully we will be closing all those missed opportunity doors.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But I want to remind the board that it is difference between civil citation and diversion. Yes, when you say you're diverting them, you're sending, they're being given a diversion program, they're still an arrest. What we have asked of your office and Mr. Pryor is to avoid the arrest and divert them to civil citation. And I think that's what he's checking to make sure that that is in his.
Yeah, sure.
But here's the problem. And this is why we actually have to have the clerk's office involved because we really need a process to really catch these. Here's the problem. When you get these cases in, they generate a case number, it's too late, right? And then it's to us, and then what do we do? We don't know, right? So
you can't unarrest. You can't unarrest, as Judge Holmes pointed out. And as
so the option is, and it goes back to the point that Judge Holmes and many others in the chat brought up. The point of this is to not get an arrest, to not have these children arrested. But the goal is, and what I'm working on now is I'm trying to figure out something with the clerk's office to where we catch these situations before they generate a case number. And in my office, we can serve as some type of a firewall where we kick it to the county civil citation to the juvenile civil citation program. And this kid doesn't have an arrest on their record, but that's the problem. The problem is, one, we shouldn't be making the arrest first and foremost. Two, when it gets to my office, it's too late. And the only other options that I have is either drop a case or send it to a diversion program. Sometimes sending a case to a diversion program is actually better for the child. Some of you may disagree with me on that. That's for a different discussion. But some kids have major underlying issues, and sometimes a diversion program might be better. And the ultimate goal is us dropping the case once they complete that diversion program. But those are really my only two options there. So we're back to square one on that. But I want you all to know right now, I'm working through that process to work with the clerk's office to try to figure out how do we create some type of system to where we catch these situations before they generate a case number. And so that's where we are. We're actually, this discussion is going to have to evolve to where we include the clerk's office, and we're going to have that discussion.
Let me ask Ms. Gaynor, are the 8 providers, are they providers of civil citation and diversion, or any of them doing both? Because I know that used to be the case.
They are doing both.
So Mr. Pryor, to your point, you're saying sometimes the programs are better, yes, but a child could enter into the same program, but under civil citation, which would mean a pre-arrest. So they can get the same services without the arrest.
I don't disagree with you.
Once we figure this whole thing out.
I don't disagree with you at all. I think the problem is the arrest. The problem is, it really is us educating the law enforcement agencies and getting them on board, which I'm willing to do. And I've actually said that to the police chiefs. We're willing to, I'm going to bring state attorneys to train, to actually provide information on as to why they have to, why it's mandated on them to issue these civil citations when they encounter kids that are eligible for it. But honestly, that's the problem. The issue is that. And yeah, the only way that I can serve as a firewall is try to develop something when that case is actually in its inception of potentially having a case number generated, because that's when we catch it. And that's the problem. That's the real problem. Because look, by the time it gets to my office, let's just be honest. By the time it gets to my office, I got a prosecutor that's 2 years out or a year out of law school. They have 300 or so cases, and they're dealing with the minor misdemeanor level case. What is the option? The option is either to drop it or send it to a diversion program. And more times than not, they're going to send it to a diversion program. Now we're trying to develop systems into our office where we grant them more discretion to do the right thing, and that's training on my end. But my goal is to catch it before it gets to that point. So, and those are the only, that's my only, really, that's my only alternative, is really developing something with the clerk's office to where we catch those cases before they generate that case number.
Okay. Judge Holmes?
I just wanted to respond to the getting the clerk involved. The statute mandates that the clerk is involved in the planning. But what the subcommittee wanted to do first was get a plan and then involve them. Matter of fact, Mr. Weeks has been in contact with them. So Mr. Weeks, I don't want to introduce hearsay. You can tell, Madam Chair, what your contact with the clerk's office is. But we can't leave them out because it's statutory that they be involved. Mr. Weeks?
Yes, Judge Holmes, I have been in contact with the clerk. I have been keeping them abreast of the development of the plan. As we get a more firm plan, we will present it to them and hear any opposition, objections, or support that they may have and shift as that point goes. Right now, I'm not hearing any opposition from the clerk. The clerk seems to be very supportive of what we're trying to accomplish, and hopefully that will remain along that vein. We will be able to pull this together. I'm very confident that we'll be able to get it together. It's just a matter of working out the details, getting it on paper, everyone agreeing this is what we are all going to stand for or stand together on, and then getting it out there for the community to consume.
I would suggest, and I'm glad to hear that you haven't had any issues so far with the clerk's office. I know that the Madam Clerk follows the direction of the Chief Judge. So I know that if there is a question generally, the Chief Judge can clear that up. So bear that in mind if you should run into, because she doesn't want to do anything that's certainly out of order. And sometimes any issue that we've had we've had an issue with that, a concern, she has consulted with the Chief Judge. And so I would suggest that Judge Williams at the appropriate time share that just in case. So we will all be on the same
Madam Chair, Madam President, we've also contemplated that area as well in the work group. And we recognize that once we get a firm draft that State Attorney Pryor and myself will present it to the Chief Judge, for his consideration, hopefully for his support and his adoption as well. We have some strategies to get this formalized on the circuit level, and we will deploy those strategies when we get to that point. But we have a plan. We just got to get it together and execute.
Okay, okay, that's good stuff. Any other concerns regarding the juvenile? And I would hope, Mr. Pryor, at our next meeting, you could also share with us, I know what it used to be, the qualifications for diversion in your office. So if you would next month explain what it is, what a child needs to do or can't, what's allowed, and how it's being run now. As we, the first half of our meeting, we'll discuss civil citation, then the second stage. I would appreciate that. Okay. All right, Miss Evans, do you have the numbers for DJJ and the COVID numbers for your facility?
Yes, I do. For the Broward Regional Juvenile Detention Center, as of March the 2nd, the 23rd, March the 2nd of 2021 at 4:30, we had 33 employees who had tested positive, with 28 having been cleared to return to work. And then we have 7 youth who've tested positive and 7 have been medically cleared. That's the cumulative numbers since we've been tracking this since last year.
Okay. And Mr. Watkins, you all are still doing you have teachers still doing the e-learning for the students?
Correct. They've been quarantined since December 23rd. They're scheduled to go back in person on Monday, March 15th.
Okay. Wow. So you think they're well, I won't ask that question. Okay. All righty. So that's interesting. And is that mandated by the district, or is that something that they're ready to do, or where are they on that? It's just time?
So, yes, it's just time. So once we have a clear where, after the whole CDC process, then, they'll clean and they'll be ready to start back Monday. So they're still under the quarantine, and then it should be lifting this week. I'll double check the date, but I believe it's either tomorrow. I think it lifts tomorrow, then Friday, weekend, they'll have everything cleaned and up and running for Monday for the teachers to return. And they are also in school during the traditional school spring break. So school will be taking place during the traditional spring break period as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, and so Mr. Weeks, when are your lawyers going to be returning? What do you have a target date for that, or are you going to wait until see what the courthouse does?
We have a soft reopening. As you all know, the Supreme Court has closed the courthouses throughout the state of Florida due to coronavirus. We have been working, the courthouses are not closed, they're closed to the public, but we have been working throughout this pandemic, having hearings each and every day. We've just been doing them via Zoom. We have a soft opening date scheduled for Monday, where a very small number of our teams on each respective side are going to venture back into the courthouse to conduct some in-person hearings. Those hearings will not be juvenile related. We are going to conduct hearings on some adult cases to explore what it is like and how we can manage the virus, and making sure that we can have some confrontational hearings that we need to be in person for. So we are going to have 2 courtrooms open starting Monday. It's a soft opening. We have a very small docket and a very small number of hearings, but they're very complex hearings. These are final violations of probation with significant factual issues that have to be presented. So we're going to try to accomplish that on next week. That's probably going to happen for the first week and a half, where we are going to go through the hearings that we have docketed, and then we're going to push into additional hearings and slowly start to ramp up the courtrooms. We have not had much conversation about reopening the juvenile section of the courthouse. And I think that it's probably wise to go slowly with this reopening plan rather than swinging the courthouse doors open and allowing everyone to run in. I can tell you that it's very difficult to coordinate the reopening of a courthouse. I have to give great respect and deference to the chief judge for figuring all this stuff out, because you have, you know, cleaning personnel, staff, of various different constitutional offices. You have judges, security, the general public, everyone. You're trying to make sure that they're safe and healthy, but we still have a lot of business, important business that needs to get done. So we're gonna attempt next week, wish us luck. I will be in the first wave in court on Monday, along with Nadine Gerald from my office. We're going to take the first steps in and see how it goes, and we'll see what happens from there.
And you'll be seeing your clients over at the detention center, still doing it electronically?
Yes, we still have our Zoom capabilities for all of our other courtrooms and for all of our other hearings. However, on Monday, we will, at least Nadine and I, and a few other attorneys in our office will be going into court. And then after we figure out how that works out, then we'll see what more we can do, how we're gonna do this safely. Because, you know, just a matter of where you're gonna stand at and how you're gonna convene, holding areas for witnesses, holding areas for victims, police officers. You would be surprised how many people have to come into a courtroom to get any business done. And if you have a large docket with a number of cases, Judge William can attest, you know, the juvenile courtrooms are large. They can hold up to like 50 or 60 people. And when they're humming, they're packed. They're packed to the gills. And oftentimes people are waiting outside the courtrooms to get in. We can't do that with COVID. They have put up some plexiglass. They put up some cameras in the courtrooms. They've created some holding areas for people to watch the hearings that need to testify. For example, family members that are going to come to support people that have to be in court. We're trying to figure it all out. It's not an easy process, because my first thing is I have to protect my clients and I have to protect my staff. And everyone else is trying to do the same for the people that they serve. But it's something that we have to get back to doing, because as you know, the vaccine is becoming readily available. Every day they're shifting the guidelines and more people are capable of getting the vaccine. And we hope that by the end of this month, all of us that's on the call will be able to get the vaccine, and we will all avail ourselves to getting it. The more people that get it, the better it is for everyone else. So that's my report on the courthouse and its reopening. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Colonel Holmes, will you give us your COVID numbers and your, one thing I forgot to get from, if you have population, your youth, but let's do this. Go ahead with you, Colonel.
Okay, at the current time, we have a total of 9 juveniles in our facilities. We have 8 at our Paul Ryan facility and 1 at a North Broward facility. All of the juveniles have access to mental health services and behavioral services. Our COVID numbers, we have no juveniles with COVID. However, we have currently, the numbers fluctuate daily, but today we have 50 at our main jails, and we had a total of 3 that are hospitalized out of the 50.
So does that include your population? Does that include the staff and the inmates as well?
That's just inmates. As far as staff, with the agency or the facility?
Let's go with the facility.
Yeah, with the facility, I believe that is, out of all of them together, I believe it's 35. Don't quote me on that. I believe it was 35 for the facility. I know altogether in the agency, we have a total of 56.
Okay.
And that's all departments together, all that are positive at this moment.
Okay, and so how are you dealing with those folk that have tested positive?
Yeah, they're all isolated and, being monitored. They're being tested very often and treated properly to make sure that they don't contaminate anyone else and the virus is contained. Unfortunately, in our profession, we get an influx of people on a daily basis. So, that's why the numbers have fluctuated. I mean, we went as low as 16. And I was excited thinking that, okay, we got it under control. And then the next week is up to 25, and then the next week it'll be 18. And then the next week it'll be 50. It fluctuates daily.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Evans, I forgot to ask, and I don't think I heard, do you know what the population is at the Juvenile Detention Center today?
Approximately, not today. I would have to look it up. I could tell you that, but the last report I received, it was 35.
Okay. 35.
Ellison, Judge Williams, as of an hour and a half ago, it was 32. All of the kids are in Broward County. 3 of the 32 are females.
Thank you, Judge. Appreciate that. Okay. All right. Is there anything else that we need to review? I do know that there are some criminal justice bills that are humming through the legislature, the committees now. I believe the one with the juveniles and with the expunction piece is moving along. And I think we should just, what I'll do is I'll ask Ms. Knowles if she can check a couple of those that we were concerned about moving forward. But last I believe I talked to Representative DeVos that they were coming along. I know we were watching a few of them, particularly the one that had to do with expungement that was retro and seemed too good to be true, but so far so good on those bills. Okay. Anything else for the good of the order?
I do have, if I may, a question for Ms. Knowles. There is legislation that is mandating that anyone 7 years old or younger not be arrested. Is that progressing? I know it was embraced by the Senate.
It is moving there, and I'm in the Capitol now, and I sit near Rep. Williams, and she has been working that bill to get some movement on it and to get it to move with the proper language. So I can follow up, but your soror Rep. Williams is working on that in the House as well.
It took a Delta to do that. Thank you.
Judge, Madam.
That was coming. It was almost there. It was almost there.
Madam President, can I follow up on that issue with Judge Holmes? That bill, I've been trying to rack my brain, and I wanted to get the input and advice for much better brains on the law. Would this be the first instance where there is a prohibition with respect to arrests in the law? Because I cannot think of any other instance where the law delineates where someone should not be arrested. And if I am correct that this would be the first instance, I have to applaud the legislature for finally recognizing that they do not have to arrest for everything. That is not the appropriate measure. In some instances, you have to recognize, and this is a clear instance where children should not be arrested. They're 7 years of age. So if I'm correct, I just have been trying to think it through and find any other provision, but I can't remember any other provision that accounts for that.
You're correct, Mr. Weeks. This is a first, not for other states, but this is a first for the state of Florida, and it stems from the fact that a 6-year-old was arrested in Orlando, and it was very publicized. And the child is still traumatized by it. So a legislator who has children that age proposed this bill, and I think it should pass without any But I'm taking names. Those that don't vote for this, I'm taking names because they may have children or grandchildren, and I want to be able to write them a letter and say, "I told you so." Okay, so it's progressing, but I wanted to make sure because I hadn't seen anything. I checked the bills periodically, and I hadn't seen any movement on it. There's publicity on it, but no movement. So, Ms. Knowles, if you could check that for me. And because I'm not adverse to writing letters to legislators to push that bill forward.
Madam Chair, I do have a quick update because Representative Williams did reach out, and it's going to be heard tomorrow. I don't know what time, but if Andrea can check,
she did call tomorrow.
Okay, tomorrow, and that's in the House.
Correct.
Thank you.
And you can view all of that stuff online. If you just go to their website and click it, you can watch it.
And download
that. Thank you.
John James, you click your camera on. Did you have something to share, sir?
No, I'm just glad to be here, Madam President.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you. Okay. Anything else for the good of the order? All hearts and minds are clear. Thank you all. I appreciate you. And I'm looking forward to report from the subcommittee. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
You as well.